This Canaanite, non-Jew, really pagan woman helps us to understand what a true relationship with God should be like. This gospel today is a puzzling, disturbing kind of gospel. It seems Jesus not only brushes this woman off, but even insults her. And yet, in her persistence, she wins his favor. This Canaanite woman comes seeking a cure for her daughter, who she said is possessed by a demon. And at first, she is completely ignored. You know, one of the worst kind of insults we can suffer is to be ignored, isn't it? It's bad enough when someone insults us, but then to be completely ignored, that's even a worse kind of insult. See, Jesus and his disciples are really outside of the Jewish territory. But this woman who is a foreigner comes up to him. And in a way, she stands for all of those people that live on the margins, those who are kind of outsiders. She's not part of the Jewish people. You got to remember the culture of that time. For a woman to address a man was not acceptable. For a Canaanite woman to address a rabbi was absolutely not socially acceptable. So here she is, a foreigner, a Canaanite, and really the Canaanites were enemies of the Jews. She's also a widow who has a daughter that is very troubled. And who knows if somebody didn't say to the apostles, don't pay any attention to her, her daughter is crazy. Just ignore her. So also this woman really stands for, is a symbol of all those who live at the margins, those who are foreigners, those who are outsiders, you could say. She comes across as just an annoyance, and yet she is very demanding. So what's going on here? You know, the worst thing that we have in our relationship with God is when we feel like we're being ignored, when God is being silent. When we lift up our prayers and ask for something that we feel is so important, and yet God does not seem to be acknowledging or hearing our prayers at all. But this woman persists. Then Jesus seems to simply put her off. He says, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So, first ignored, and now she's brushed off. But she persists. She says the scripture says she did him homage, which is to acknowledge him as, really to do homage to a person is to acknowledge that God is present in this person. She does him homage. Lord, please help me. Then he has this, there's no other way to see this statement than something that is an insult. He said, it's not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. Now there are some scholars that tell us that the Jews would sometimes refer to non-Jews in a derogatory way and call them dogs. That would be like a slang term that they would use for Gentiles. For the Jewish people, dogs were regarded as something that was unclean, because they they would eat anything given to them. The dogs would even eat pork, which was anathema to the Jews. But the word that we're told that Jesus uses here is not the ordinary word for dogs. It was more of a word used for a household pet. So kind of like a lapdog. But still, even then, you have to admit that it seems to be an insult. What's interesting is that she is not deterred. She doesn't get her dander up. She doesn't feel like she's got to come back with an insult. Instead, she kind of matches wits with Jesus. She comes back honestly and with this almost a brilliant response. She says, "Yes, Lord, even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." You could say our argument is kind of like this. Well, pets are really part of the family. If you would ask me about my dog Molly, I would say, "Oh yeah, she's a member of my family. She's like my only child." So what she's saying is that, okay, yeah, I'm fine with that. But you know, pets are part of the family. While they don't have a seat at the table, they enjoy intimacy at the family's feet. And so she says, "Yes, Lord, even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." So what a great comeback. I remember my dad, he was loved a great comeback. Now you couldn't be insulting, but if you had a good comeback, then he loved it. Well, think about this. How do we address God? You know, we can have sort of a God is so infinitely greater than I. God is so infinitely removed from me, and have this stance of ultimate humility, but also a stance that keeps God at a distance, God removed far from me. And there's something good about that stance. It's important for us to recognize that God is God, and that we are so infinitely removed from Him that the fact that He will listen to us and talk to us is a great, great gift. It's sheer gift. It's not because we deserve it. There's another way that we sometimes approach God, I think, which is the exact opposite. That we treat God as if He's our buddy, big buddy in the sky. So, to me, this woman strikes a very good balance. She does him homage. She acknowledges that Jesus is far greater than she is, and that she is really owed nothing here. But she is very bold and very honest and very open. See, if we are nothing but humble and nothing but deferent towards God, then we can remain at a distance from God. And if we're on the other side, nothing but kind of an in-your-face or overly bold with God, then we're not acknowledging who God truly is for us. And see, I think real prayer combines both those elements. It's like Abraham in the book of Genesis when he's interceding for the inhabitants of Sodom. Remember, he said, "Well, Lord, what if I could find 50 good people?" And the Lord says, "Well, then I would spare." He says, "Well, let me dare to speak to you even further and say, if there's 40, and then he goes on, if there's 20, if there's 10, there's even 5. We see that sort of boldness there in Abraham. This sense of intimacy with God, but there's also this sense of realism before the Lord. She has that stance of true respect, but also willingness and this willingness to engage God, this willingness to enter into the intimacy that God wants with us. That's really the proper sense of faith. It's the proper sense of prayer. And we see that Jesus is completely won over by the depth of her faith, the depth of her real relationship with him. Her confidence and her wit delights him, I think. He says, "Woman, great is your faith. Let it be done for you as you wish." So today, as we think about this gospel, ask the Lord to give us that kind of true stance before God. That stance of reverence and respect, but also that stance of intimacy and boldness. A willingness to kind of lay it out there before God. To be honest in our prayer. And to receive whatever it is God is going to give us. Knowing that we're not owed anything by the Lord, but that in his goodness he desires to give us all.